Well, it's great to be here today and be part of VAM. We have an amazing panel of people to talk about the advancing technology in our field. There's an amazing curve at the speed at which these new developments are coming and how they're affecting or allowing us to affect production. There's very smart people out there writing software, developing hardware, and then other smart people saying, hey, I can use that piece with this piece and do this other thing. And that's what's been happening. This virtual production, everybody's speaking about this term a lot, and it means all kinds of things from work from home all the way to, we're going to use as a first example what Jim Cameron did on Avatar. If we could advance the next slide. Yeah, and then the next. This was back in 2008 and 9, I imagine, because the movie came out in 2009, Christmas time. It was, honestly, it was actually a tool for behind the camera. Nobody could use the imagery that, we're not actually seeing through the camera here, but we're seeing the process. And this didn't drive real-time rendering or anything like that. That hadn't happened yet. So this was a great way to integrate motion capture performances and see how they worked inside the shot that may have, thousands of people, digi doubles in it. And it may have, foreground elements that were, big ships flying or other flying creatures or whatever. And the director would be able to see those things together and even affect the camera, even be able to frame the shot and reframe the shot. So this was a great production tool, but it wasn't in and of itself a final output that anybody would ever want to see, other than for curiosity of how it was done. So then we move a little later in time to 2017 and 18 when First Man was being developed. Could we go to the next? Yeah. They developed a half cylinder of LED screens, which was one of the first big walls of LED screens. Next frame, please. And you can see how they were arranged. And again, there's video feeds to each of these that are 4K or whatever. I'm not sure the configuration of screens at this point, but the imagery had to be rendered at very high resolution. And for this is pre-rendered material that's being displayed up here, but it was able to be paced to the action of the scene, and then various set pieces were put in front of the screen, with the screen being what should be out the windows or reflected in the object. Go to the next slide. There's all kinds of stuff where they're shooting in Earth atmosphere, and then go to the next, and then a little further, one more. And then ultimately there's in space with the capsule. And actually there's a very big part of the film where Buzz and Neil are inside the lunar landing module approaching the moon. And they have a couple of windows that are triangular shaped. And those windows are showing, the moon. I mean, they're seeing the moon as they're approaching it. And when you get close enough, it fills more than the frame. And that light is lighting the whole interior of the capsule. They have lights on their control panels, but everything else. And here they are sitting with their spacesuits with a big helmet on and thick glass, and seeing from behind them, we're seeing through the refraction of the glass of the image that's through the window, we're seeing the effect of that, the darks and lights of what's out the window, the moon surface itself, and all of that is being captured on film, done, or on digital, done, except for when creative changes come. So anyway, if you had green instead of the imagery, you would have green spill everywhere, and you would have no idea where any one particular piece of that green was coming from to put the right imagery there, other than to recreate the whole scene, ray trace it, and pull it back through again. So honestly, green screen seems like the Stone Age, when you can actually light the actors or the set pieces with the actual thing that would have been there. And therefore, these things have to be done in advance. A lot of work has to be done in advance to be ready for a shoot. So now we're going to go to the latest version of this, which is real-time rendering of that material, so that we have all the advantages of having it there for real, but we're actually able to see it in perspective properly through the camera that's taking it, and they take the position of that real camera is affecting what we're seeing on the screen, so we're getting the right, parallax and perspective. I'm going to ask Scott to take the next couple of slides here, because he's actually been doing a lot of work this way with the full volume. Scott Squires.
All right, thanks, Tim. Yeah, as Tim mentioned, these developments into virtual production have produced quite a few tools. Why don't we go to that first slide then as a starting point? So the whole point is, with virtual production, you're not only creating a background, but you're also creating light that comes out of the bright LEDs, so that you get the correct lighting on the character, whatever you have in front, and you get reflections. And because this is not a still image, and it's not just a taken image, you actually have a whole 3D background behind, so the camera can move and everything moves with correct parallax. So this just shows a layout. There's quite a few machines on a typical virtual production, and because of the size of the screens and the resolution required, you have multiple machines, each one doing a different section of the wall. When we'll just start moving ahead through these slides. Mandalorian was one of probably the first ones that you're seeing a lot of this utilized. So they had a very large set, and in this case, what you're achieving with this, and in this case, you're able to switch backgrounds fairly easily. It takes a different way of working. And in this case, I guess, why don't we hold here for a moment? You can change the backgrounds quite a bit, but as Tim says, you need time to build all of these backgrounds in Unreal or some other 3D tool. And so the time, it shifts the time if you're doing virtual production from doing it in the pre-production, production, and post-production that you typically would have for visual effects. You have to squeeze all that time into the previs. And an elaborate set, you've got to allow at least probably a couple of months to go ahead and make the details you need. Now, one of the problems you run into with photographing screens is you get a moire pattern. If you look to the left, you'll see some patterning going on because you have the LEDs. Now, as they refine the screens, that gets better and better, but something that you have to be aware of when you're shooting and setting up. We can go on to the next one. And this is just showing the camera is tracked, so that as the camera moves around, whether that's on a Steadicam or a rig of any type, then the system has an elaborate system for tracking the camera and certain items in it. So in this case, it's projecting the whole image, but it's focused on specifically the section that the camera is going to see. So we can move on to the next one. So here the critical thing is art directing and doing previs of all this, so you know what you're doing. In this case, you can see that the wall is back there, and in this case, they're shooting from the waist up. One of the difficulties is when you have to shoot the floor and you have to blend into the virtual floor and trying to get those to match both in color and texture and everything else. But the cowboy shots are from the waist up. Shots are fairly easy to do. Okay, well, why don't we move on to the next one? And you can see with some of the screens, this has an actual ceiling piece in it, which gives you a lot more reflection and a lot more lighting. But typically the top screens tend to be lower resolution, and typically it's just used mainly for reflections. If you tilt up to this, you'll have to do some cleanup work. You can see at the very edge. So the whole point is to what we call final pixel. You're trying to photograph it, so that's the finished shot. And in a lot of cases, you still have to do a little bit of touch-up work, but you're trying to accomplish as much in screen as possible. Okay, we can go on. And so here's another very elaborate background. So even if you have just a simple flat screen, you can do some pretty elaborate things in a fairly small amount of space, but it does take design work because you've got props and so forth in the live action set that ideally are replicated in the virtual set. So you want to look as seamless as possible. Okay, you can go on.
Previs is a big thing in this too, isn't it, Scott?
It is, yeah, because you've got to work out exactly what you want to see, how you're going to see it, and then what you have to deal with on the production set. You can move on one more. And the thing is, the cost factor, anything close to the screen has to be super detailed. Now, the further away it goes, you can lay off on some of the detail, but you don't want to end up doing a super high res of the entire world if you can avoid it, just because of the cost and time involved. And here they've darkened a little bit of the ceiling piece itself, because one of the problems with the circular system is you end up washing out the screen if you get things too bright, even from across, just like in a dome theater. You can move on. One of the other problems with some of these is the screens are very hard and flat surface, and you've got a very smooth surface, especially for the curved screens. So audio recording becomes a major problem because it just sounds like you're recording everything at the bottom of an empty swimming pool. So here he's coming in with a little extra light, so you want to try to get as much ambient light from your sources around you from the LED, and then you come in with accent lights. You can move on to the next one. Now, one of the things is you can do the virtual background, and then you can also, if need be, if you want to backup or safety take, you can switch it over to be a green screen behind. And you can also set up to do just the green screen behind your character, but remain with all the rest of the scene around you. So you get the reflections and the lighting that you would get, but it gives you the option of changing the background later if you need to. One more slide. This shows the complexity of the back of the screens. And this is, this technology continues to improve as we go through. All right, next. And this just shows, this is a box type of setup, and showed in that little window where the camera frustum is. I'll keep us moving, you can go ahead. Yeah, and this shows just using a section. And this is an old, green screen. So this is replacing certain green screen shots. So it's useful for certain applications. You have to take a look and see what makes sense. So why don't we move on to the next one? You can go ahead. Yeah, so that was the original, just some more inserts of Mandalorian, figuring out how you make the foreground work with the background. Okay, so
let's go back to the go back to the last image. Yeah, we're going to talk about this now around the group. I want to find out about the experiences that Vinay and Jigesh and Jayant with actual productions, how they might actually be utilizing aspects of virtual production on the projects that are going through their place. Somebody works for a living and they do what the client wants. We're talking about the conceptual, how this all works and what's developed, but ultimately it's all to make movies, commercials, or special films. So real examples. Let's, Jigesh, you maybe tell us about some of the stuff that has been going on at DNEG that.
Sure. Yeah. So I think a lot of that was great, Scott. Thank you so much. I think what we're doing right now is various different things in terms of developing the virtual production pipeline. Recently, DNEG has done a JV with Dimension Studios, where we are doing a lot of the LED work with them. A lot of the shows that we are currently doing, where we are partnering with them, where we are creating the content and they are servicing the LED walls for any independent projects, as well as the DNEG projects that are going on. The latest one that we worked on was the Matrix. I don't know if everybody saw that. There was the big dojo sequence that was pretty much entirely done in Unreal. And a lot of our teams here at DNEG were working with Epic on bouncing data back and forth, figuring out the render passes, how we are going to do that. We worked very closely with the director on that, which gave us a good understanding of going back and forth on the previs beforehand while she was remotely sitting somewhere else. So we could flavorize the whole thing in terms of someone working remotely, giving directions, us sitting in the studios, all pretty much working from home, and coming together to create this entire sequence together. So that was quite exciting challenge for us. And then also we're also doing some work on the feature side, where we are partnering up with the Unreal team to do a lot of the straight out previs as well as rendering straight out of Unreal without going into any other packages. So, that's something that's really getting us to push because of the support that we're getting from Epic as well. So that's coming out quite well on our end as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Jayant has a very unique studio that is kind of like a big playground to use all the different toys in any way that you can come in with a project and walk out the door reasonably quickly. Jayant was telling me about a couple of his projects. Jayant, I'd love to hear your...
So thankfully for us, because we are in the commercial market, we get to experiment with a lot of interesting projects actually. And frankly, for us, we were lucky because last year we were the first one in India actually to explore this whole virtual LED production thing in our studio. So we had set up an LED wall for 2 months. We got it was like a pop-up lab where we got the LED screen, we got a stipe for tracking, and we experimented for 2 months on multiple projects. So we shot a lot of stuff just to understand how it works. We called many directors, we called DOPs, tried to figure out how they could utilize it. So it was a very interesting, I think it's almost like a year and a half now. But that whole insight of using LED was a good eye-opener for us to see how we could actually utilize the LED. Then we had set up a green screen. And now we have a decent amount of work for Unreal. In fact, we just delivered the Dhoni commercial for an academy. I don't know if you guys have seen. So all the backdrops were created in Unreal. And trust me, without Unreal, it would have been impossible for us to deliver a project like that. So if I can show some of the work if you want to do it now.
Just show a couple of the stills through.
Because that will give a very clear idea of what we could do. I'll just quickly play this commercial first. If anybody has seen this, I won't play it, but all the backdrops here were created in Unreal.
Oh, shucks. Okay.
So you can see this later on, but I had some amazing experience working with Unreal and stuff like that on this. I'll show you some of the quickly making of this.
Yeah, he has an amazing little playground where anybody can come in and play. In some ways it's like an insert stage in the old days. But
so you could see all these backdrops we have created in Unreal. We could do like a previs. We did a previs. And this all was real time. So actually when the director, the DP and we were sitting together, we could actually see this whole background coming to life in real time. It made the whole process so unique and so different that normally, like working in the industry for so many years, we never had an option to have a tool where we could see everything real time. So I'm saying we are using this technology a lot right now. I'm also going to show you what we were doing with the LED screens. Screen at our end. Yeah. So this is all what we shot on LED last year. I think we had a lot to learn when we had LED, but right now working so much on multiple projects, I think we got a better hang of how we could actually use the whole virtual production thing.
Very
So
cool
what
stuff.
we have done is we have set up a chroma floor at our end, and over there we are continuously experimenting a lot with different types of backgrounds. We are shooting a lot of stuff. We have like a chroma floor. We got an ultimate gear. We got a film camera. So for us, it's a playground where every day we go, we create a set in Unreal, go and test it out and see how it looks. Trying to perfect how to match the lighting with the characters. So that is what is going on right now. And many people are interested in our commercial world to come and explore possibilities. So
That's
that is what we are
cool.
up to right now.
It's very cool. You have to educate the client in a lot of cases.
Yeah, that's a lot of.
You have a
The
great
thing
little
is,
playground.
people are actually, see, the thing is, in our world, everything was to be delivered yesterday. So it's very time intensive. So for that, it's a tough job. But people are coming to us looking at that as an option if this problem can be solved. We are not saying 10 days, but I'm saying at least in 4-5 days we are able to deliver what earlier would have taken us a month.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, this technology is speeding things up on
Yeah.
the front. Some are not visible on the screen, and
Yeah.
are processes that would have taken weeks or months and now are days. But the whole process and the whole ability to interact and see things and make decisions. The whole thing about when you see things is you might change your mind about what you want, because you go, oh, well, now I can see that it would be better if I, so in one way we're enabling things to be fast, and in another way, once you bake everything into the shot, the changing those things later in post, like, which part of the moon is coming through the window,
I know.
lighting everybody else. When you do that after the fact, and there's always creative changes, shot swap orders in sequences and things like that don't completely remove. But like as Scott was showing, you could shoot a pass always that had the green screen, and you could actually interleave it with the shot that, if you think of the shutter as only being open half of the time for the image that we're taking in 1/48th of a second, or whatever the frame rate is, you could be shooting the green screen version of it and the finished version of it at the same time. And you have the ability to go back at least to those shots to have the green screen version of it. So that's actually, because of hertz rate and computers running all this stuff, it's a whole lot more practical to do. I want to throw it over to Vinay. Vinay is on the implementation side of a lot of this stuff. He's writing all kinds of software to let people utilize all these advances. Again, we're in virtual production, but we're going to jump into some of the other things as well. Vinay, phantomFX, and he's been all over the place, MPC, DreamWorks, and small and big places. But go ahead.
Yeah,
Vinay.
so thanks, Scott, Jigesh, and Jayant, and that was amazing what you're doing at a commercial level. So what we are trying is, we are trying to one up on the virtual LED screens. We are going completely virtual. So I may not be able to disclose the project because it is currently in production. So the thing is, what we are trying is, we are actually downloading geospatial data inside Unreal and creating the complete environments accurate to what it is there on the earth. And we are creating, like, due to the pandemic and due to other reasons, inaccessible places, but the film requires them to be shot over there. So we are actually downloading the geospatial data inside Unreal and creating the environments. And as you were saying just now that green screen and virtual is happening at the same time, we are actually doing that right now for this production. Like, the actors are being shot on a green screen, or sort of a simulated screen with ambient lighting matching the environment, and the complete environment is being done virtually in Unreal with geospatial data. And we are actually downloading even the textures and height maps directly from geographical information systems. So we are getting a point accurate, what you call a set model, though they require huge resources to just compute that in real time. We are trying to, again, what you call optimize that as much as possible to get it but everything is done in COM to get the final picture. So pretty soon we would be having it on the big screen. So that is what we are currently working on. but it's fun to actually integrate what was meant for something else. The geospatial data is not meant for production, but we are now trying to utilize it for production to get the point accurate data inside the world space. So yeah.
So there's a lot of work to be done to integrate all this stuff. One of the other areas that we wanted to talk about was the use of machine learning and artificial intelligence. There's a couple of slides that we have here from Scott. Scott, do you want to jump into that?
Sure. Well, I guess one of the key things over the last 20 years, there have been an incredible amount of advancement in terms of vision, algorithms, and so forth, that combined with computer power enabled us to do things like stitching photos together. And we can do photogrammetry, where we're taking multiple images and the computer calculates every lineup of the images and calculates in 3D. So we've achieved all of that, or we're still working on all that. But now that we have started to enable AI, and a subset really is the machine learning, ML. It allows us to do much more, and it allows us to do certain types of things that we didn't think would be possible. So this is just showing a simple illustration of you can take one photo and use it as a guide, style guide, and automatically convert one photo using the style or lighting of another one. And you've seen this in some apps and stuff in terms of changing the style of a different painter and so forth. The other thing to realize is even your phone that you have these days use quite a bit of machine learning and neural networks and so forth, because it'll catalog all your photos and see which ones have flowers or whatever. You can search for just about anything, as well as it does facial recognition and groups them together. So there's, we don't tend to think it's as advanced as it is, but a lot of consumer products are using quite a bit. So now we're trying to use it for virtual or visual effects. So here shows an example of some of the add-ons to Nuke, of being able to basically segment the image, and the computers have been fed tens of thousands of photos of people on different angles and so forth. And in the bottom one, they've seen cats from every possible angle, every different type of cat. So the computer is able to recognize those. I mean, it doesn't realize it's a cat, but that's what comes out at the end. The computer's just looking at bits of pixels all the time, but out of that, it's able to create essentially mats around some of this type of work. So as this advances, allows things like compositing easier. Why don't we move on to the next one? So this is a case where, a lot of this was in the research labs, and it's now folding into commercial products. And this is on the Flame system that can generate a depth map of a real image without additional stage equipment. It can calculate just based on the machine learning and understanding the depth perception of characters. You can go on to the next one. So the other thing is just taking imagery, as I say, using the vision and combining that with motion learning or machine learning or AIs. You can use the facial expression to drive any other face that you might have, or character or avatar and so forth. You can go on to the next one. So some of the other things, of course, most people have probably seen some of the deep fakes where you can have somebody doing something and it'll put on Tom Cruise's face or something like that. So the computer just is fed, as I said, thousands of pictures. You can go on to the next one. So the other great thing is being able to calculate not only match moving things, but also calculate actually meshes for people and so forth. Obviously, in the original days, we had to manually match move things frame by frame. These days, that's all fairly easy. Now you're actually doing capture of even motion capture without any markers, or even with single cameras in some cases. You can go on to the next one. this is an example of just, taking a single photograph of somebody, and then the computer going ahead and building the head, for an avatar character or a digital devil or something like that. You can go on. So Nuke has folded in a bunch of different tools for doing this. So just recognizing people, in this case, it's separated the people from the background, and you can say, okay, go ahead and just find everything that's, the cat or whatever you might want to search for and isolate that. You can move on to the next one. And this is kind of, we saw this before, is just, it's selecting every person in here. It's pretty amazing. I did a class with NVIDIA and scanning like traffic and so forth. So it can read all the text, it can read the type of car, it can really classify a lot of information. You can move on to the next one. So if we can leverage this, and one nice thing about Nuke is obviously it's a very flexible system, controllable system. So they're trying to allow the artist to go ahead and control and take advantage of this. If you start building from scratch, you have to go through quite a bit, but they give you some basic tools that make it much easier. You can move on to the next one. Okay, and here they've created a mesh around the person and trying to update that in real time, not necessarily in real time, but trying to track that, whether that's formatting or for a 3D effect. That makes it much easier and faster. Okay, and this is a case where they've used it to remove blur. So on the left side, you see a lot of blur, and on the right side, you see very little blur. So they have different programs to deal with that, and even to sharpen things. I mean, we always joked in the past about the TV shows where they'd say zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, but now you can actually do it in some cases. Okay, you can go on to the next one. And so same thing, this is removing some of the blur. And the next one here, so this is their copy, what they call a copycat. So the artist goes ahead and does just a few frames of something. And this demo that they were doing, they're removing a bruise on the person under their eye, and did a few frames and said, okay, here's the original photo, here's what I did. And you start analyzing that and figure out how you should do it. And they let it run for 40,000 times in the background. And some of these things they tie into cloud, so they consider ground truth as your original, and then what you want it to be. And if you've set it up right and go through a few iterations, you can actually make it reproduce this. And then that learning, you can save that, and then you can use that, or other people at the company can then use that as a stepping stone or starting point for theirs.
Scott, do you see anybody actually using this stuff in production yet, or is it feel like research more yet?
Yeah, well, different levels. Obviously, some of the deep fake things have already been used, and they are, we're getting there more and more with each of the tools as they get released, and people are starting to ramp up to it. But it between the vision and things like virtual production, I mean, we're seeing another whole phase that we're going through with visual effects. So it's pretty exciting, the new things coming down. We saw it going from the old optical to film to digital and 3D computer graphics, and now with both virtual production and AI type of tools, it opens up a whole another opportunity beyond, and trying to relieve some of the tedious work so that the artist can focus on more of the creative work.
Yeah, that's an important point now. Jigesh, I wanted to throw this one to you. Jigesh has got a company with thousands of people devoted to all the different departments that it takes to do visual effects on the film. And some of the areas where, obviously it takes a lot of time are things like roto and match move and body tracking and things like that. Have you seen this stuff starting to seep into our tools, Jigesh? Either
we have seen some of it trickle in I can't really mention the names because we're doing R&D with a lot of people, but yeah, we are starting to look at a lot of the stuff that we are looking at in terms of automated tracking, quick masking, in terms of machine masking, so that, we're not spending time to do garbage mats for shots and stuff like that. We already done a test on a existing project where, where it would take an artist probably a day of throwaway work, which a shot is just going to need a garbage mat because we need to insert a couple of things for a content approval from the client. So all of that work now can be completely saved and can be done by the machine. So, that way we are saving a lot of man hours in terms of, getting an artist to do that repetitive work. We rather upgrade that artist and, get him to do stuff that is much more advanced rather than just spending time on the garbage matting, and that can be taken care of by the machine.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, is that it can allow the talent to be retargeted to stuff that's more creative and less repetitive if the machine learning and all these processes can be more automated. There was a question that was asked for, in this panel, does anybody see this as any kind of job, taking away jobs or challenging anything? Honestly, I think it only allows people to do the more exciting work. And, there's so much of it coming at us from all sides. I mean, streamers are making so many episodic things, and the amount of work that's in a live action feature these days. It used to be if you did 500 to 1,000 shots, that was quite a few shots. 1,500 was a lot. There's 2,500 and 3,000 shots in a movie, and they're complex, and they have everything going. So I just wanted to get your guys' opinion, being that you're actually in the position to see the impact of that stuff. How do you guys see this technology affecting our industry in terms of speed, money, and talent?
I think speed-wise, definitely it's helping. So I think, like you mentioned, if some of these rudimentary jobs would go away, like rotoing and masking. Of course, we want to upgrade these people. At the same time, a lot of new positions are coming in to do with the entire virtual production, Unreal side of things. So that opens an entire pool of artists which are required to now concentrate on that and generate that content. So that's definitely that shift of requiring a different set of artists is what the new requirement is.
Oh, that's interesting. What do you think, Jayant? Any of that impact?
So actually, So as being a boutique studio, we don't have like so many artists working on Roto, but our effort is always to try and figure out what are the best ways artists can grow. Like as our colleague told us, it's better that they keep on going from Roto to something else. So these tools are there. We are trying out, like for us to say, like Redshift was first when it was introduced, like some 7-8 years ago. We were the first guys to actually start using it, and it saved us so much of man hours, rendering time. It's just a different example, but I'm saying how technology can help an artist to be more creative. That's the reason I was saying this example about Redshift. So like these tools, we are continuously looking out for tools which can help artists grow in all different directions, like whichever field they're working on, maybe it's animation, previews, or anything. So that is what our approach is. But I said that we are a very boutique studio. So for us, these challenges are very limited.
Thank you. And Vinay, what do you say from your side at Phantom? You're muted. Vinay, you're muted.
Yeah, so with respect to machine learning, what I would say is we have been trying to create digital human sort of photographs. So what that does is it's a two-part thing. One is it reduces the manpower required to shoot crowds or where humans in the background are required. The other part is getting them licensing those images or something. Now we are going to create actually virtual people out of those images, and that actually helps us in populating any kind of environment. And this is being done using machine learning, and it is fairly accurate to a certain point, including the clothing, everything. It's automatically textured, and everything is done. The thing is, it consumes a lot of resources to just create one human, but at the end of the day, it saves a lot of man hours in directing someone to do something for a particular duration of time. So that is where we are approaching, and a lot of these machine learning technologies are at a nascent stage, I would say, because nowadays what we are doing is we're directly taking research papers and trying to implement it in production. So that is where it's a huge jump, and there are a lot of niggles over there to clear off. So, but we are trying some of the things right now.
Well, that's interesting. Scott and I have been involved in this industry more years than we'll actually put a number to. But in the earliest days, you could only do what you were capable of managing the complexity level of. You know, we would do 24-hour shoots where someone would be shooting and changing elements and flipping things, or changing disc packs and changing bipack mats and cameras. And if you did one thing wrong, the whole thing was screwed and you had to do it all over again. And now, you know, with the complex, you know, CPUs, graphics processors, as well as CPUs to compute pure math, what one artist is able to control and manage the complexity of is, you know, it's like the difference between the universe and the solar system. You know, it's amazing what can be done. When I look at the simulations that are being done, there was a particular talk on the work done on Godzilla versus Kong. And they had multiple simulations that had to affect each other. So the coming up out of the water with fur on Kong as he grabs onto an aircraft carrier to, you know, to get himself back out of the water is going to interact with all kinds of other stuff that has to do with Godzilla and his flames and his, you know, all these different things. So now you have something that, you know, we've watched the scale of simulation work go from, you know, what was really trivial, you know, by today's standards, to what's out of this world complex. And then now meshing multiple ones at each other and having them actually affect their lighting or their shadows or their the force of one thing by the force of another. You know, that would have been, you know, unmanageable. I mean, you know, when we went to the moon, they actually had people doing the math on how, what speed and trajectory we needed to take off at and hit the moon with, otherwise we'd miss it. And because the IBM 360 was the biggest computer at the time, and they didn't, they still had it being done longhand. But, you know, we're in CG and visual effects these days, we are so far beyond all that. The processing power, you know, in our phone is one thing, but everything, every machine in our rack, in our render farms and in the cloud and all that is able to handle so much stuff that really the sky is the limit. And with all these new processes to cut down man hours from doing at least the repetitive, you know, stuff that can be redirected to other things, it just allows us just to go further and further. So I don't see anything stopping. I don't see anybody losing any jobs over it. I see people having more opportunity to move up. And I don't see any of the filmmakers and distributors having less of an appetite for as much of this as they can possibly get. And as long as they keep making stories where it doesn't feel like all we're doing is getting everything that could be possibly conceived of rather than something that entertains, you know, as long as we keep entertaining everybody with the complexity levels, you know, it's just going to keep going. Scott, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it opens up a lot of opportunities, and there'll be, as I think was mentioned, new positions and things. People focused on those areas of AI and machine learning and so forth. And you know, it's kind of hard to predict exactly some of the interesting things, because it's not only the technical and repetitive, but you can also apply it to the creative things and say, okay, go ahead and try a dozen different variations of color and so forth, and you know, let's take a look at it, you know, things like that, just exploring ideas.
Yeah, machine learning to do wedges.
Yeah, just, you know, more advanced wedges, but just you know, taking a look and you know, thinking about things in 3D and setting up, and you know, just to allow the filmmaker and thereby the visual effects artist, you know, the capabilities to explore things. And, you know, the whole speed up that we're seeing, obviously, when we started, we're shooting on film, so you'd have to wait a day or two to get that back and then go through optical. Now you're seeing, especially with real-time engine, you're seeing, you know, it in real time and try out ideas instantly. So you can go through a number of takes and number of iterations in a very quick time. The machine learning is not so quick, but it's going to leverage all the real time as well once you get to a certain point with that.
How about you, Jigesh? Any more thoughts on that?
No, I think similar to what Scott says, I think once it picks up, we really don't know which direction it's going. Like Vinay mentioned, they're experimenting on the digital human side of things. We are looking at some of the roto and prepping of plates, where we have volume of plates, and how do we get through 1,000 shots which have green screen markers on it, stuff like that. So in that sense, it's definitely evolving. A lot of stuff is being done in R&D in different places. So we'll see how this sort of evolves. I think what's giving us an opportunity is any show that's coming up, we can partner with the studio and the client and suggest some of these ideas that we have and what we've been experimenting, and some of them are really on board, and we're already experimenting on some of the new upcoming projects where they're on board and at least starting up a couple of sequences to experiment and see how it is, and they've been quite impressed with some of the tests that we've been doing.
Well, that's exciting to see the studios who pay for these things and the filmmakers to be excited about trying things, and doing experimental work. I mean, to some degree,
huge support from Epic.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because back in the old days, they would always say, well, in 5 years, we'll be able to do a digital human. They said this in 1985. Boy, were they wrong. But, the other side of that is, what will we have in 5 years? Who knows? I mean, we can't say what it will solve in 5 years, and we can't say what we'll have in 5 years, but everything that keeps coming is amazing. And you give us a new tool or a new approach, and our industry will utilize it. Some movie will put it into it, and nobody would have thought we'd be doing an animated film like Jungle Book or like Lion King, and we'd be making it look like a live action movie, and that kind of technology would be at that level. So we can make the whole darn world, or we can integrate everything into it. But it's the sky is the limit, really, and there's no obvious limit coming. Everybody said, well, Moore's law is eventually going to top out or something. It doesn't seem like it. It seems like technology just keeps. There's another way always to make the level of magnitude go up. So what do you say, Vinay? You're in it from that side more.
The thing is, I'm now seeing a lot of artists wanting to learn programming, which is a nice thing. And we are running in-house programming courses because they want to know how to use this technology to enhance their skill set. So that's a different turn of events, because sometime back they were satisfied with the tools, what they used to know. Now they're exploring more. And I think this is going to be a boon to the AI industry, because we have more people trying out for the data sets. The data sets are much more important in the AI world. So more artists trying to learn programming and working on these data sets would help AI go leaps and beyond before we know what is happening. You're saying 5 years. I am thinking about what is going to happen next week. Somebody's going to put on something new, open source project, some new technology, and we are going to see how we can implement it in production. So that's how it's going on.
Yeah, it's amazing. Jayant, any thoughts on any of this?
So when I was listening to all these things, there's a funny thing which is a problem. I wouldn't say problem, but a challenge for us. See, because with machine learning, all these apps that are being developed on mobile phones and everything, the clients come to us with such amazing requests. Like on a phone, they can do effects like on a snapshot or something, the filter. They think this is so fun. You can't do it. See, because it's so easier. You can I can make you look younger in 2 seconds. But if you have to do in VFX, you imagine how difficult it would be. And they're saying it's so easy. See, on my phone, my son can do it.
Yeah.
So that is such a challenge, because they just come up with amazing stuff on any iOS device or anything. There are so many apps using machine learning in such an interesting way. Like you can just put a rocket in the middle of a room and they'll just preview it and show it to you. So this is how it looks. Just imagine the client coming to you because he's using it on his phone. So I think these smarter guys are using the whole machine learning on a phone or an iPad in a much smarter way or a different way. See, because for us, we are looking at a bigger picture, we're looking at bigger shots or bigger sequences. For them, it's so easy, it just looks so easy. But implementing in a VFX pipeline, my colleagues would agree to what I'm saying. It's so difficult. And for us, it's a challenge for every day.
Yeah, well, it's
I don't know.
I can remember seeing in Jurassic Park, the first Jurassic Park, there was a stunt girl who plays the little girl, and she falls down into a hole and she grabs and then she looks up, and the look up was so that everybody can tell that it's really not a stunt girl. So they actually had to do a matched action by the actor and then replace the face, you know, the way we know traditionally to do that. And I can't, it wouldn't have been optical. I don't think it would have been opticals back then, but I mean, some of the stuff was actually done optically at one time. But the idea that someone can do a deep fake, you know, minutes of material, and it can look like President Obama or, you know, Trump or any actor. And, you know, it's just crazy that that kind of stuff can be done so easily when for us.
We get like almost 3-4 inquiries every week asking us how they can do that deepfake thing. And they think it's so easy on the phone, we can do it. You can't change face. We've seen it.
Well, yeah, but it wouldn't be the level that we would need for our work. And
for them, see, for a layman, for other guys, it looks nice for us on the phone. So it's always a challenge.
I saw the most incredible one when Trump was just getting into the office. Oh no, he had just visited India. And someone had taken an amazing dance scene from one of the movies and put his head on the dancer. And it looked like Trump was the most amazing dancer. And it was hysterical to watch. And somebody did it. We never even found out who it was. You know, it wasn't like they became famous because they did such a great piece of work. It's just another one of those things out there. And I'm actually talking about, you know, so far as anybody knows, nobody has used this deep fake thing yet to, you know, cause an uprising or, you know, truly deliver some evil thing, but it's possible. But the other thing that I was encouraged by was they think that they can teach AI to catch AI, and that AI will help us detect what is a deep fake so that it can be proved somehow. So it'd be nice if it was the cop and the robber. If we have a robber, then we can have a cop, you know, of the same brain. That would be great.
So I think, Tim, I think our time's about up. If
it probably is. Any closing statements from anybody? It's been a great panel, you guys. You've been terrific. It's exciting times. Every one of you is in a wonderful place in that industry right now to see all this and to affect it and to use it. So keep making all the incredible imagery and commanding all the troops. Jigesh, he's got armies of people on all of these projects. I mean, we had Matrix going through while we had Dune going through, while we had, I don't know, it was God, I don't know, I shouldn't mention names, projects probably, but it's amazing the number of shots and the number of projects, and Jigesh is out there watching over all of them. So anyway, we've got an amazing group of people. Thank you for your perspectives on all this stuff. And let's see what happens next year. It's going to be different than this year for sure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all, you guys. Thank you from Anil. And thank you, Scott. You stayed up so late. Thank you for it. And it's been a pleasure listening to all of you all. So have a great day. Have a great night.
Thanks,
and the rest of you all have a great day. Thanks, Tim. Thanks.